All right, everybody, what is going on? How y'all doing today? Welcome to another edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, C. Wells, coming at you, and we are wrapping up our 12 team previews. We have the Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions as our 12th and final preview of the preseason. This has been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, but this has been a journey. And I decided to go ahead and drop the last two a little bit early. Um, I because I wanted to go ahead and just start to focus on the MEAC Swag Challenge. So I'm putting this one out a couple of days early. It was scheduled to come out on Wednesday, but it's now dropping on Sunday, which is today. So I decided to drop this one early and drop the TSU one on yesterday, which was Saturday. So I wanted to go ahead and drop them for you, get them out there, and start to lock in on the start of the season. Week 0 MEAC Swag Challenge is Saturday, August 24th. That's 6 days from now. So we will do a lot of talking about that game on Swag Smoke. I'm gonna drop my preview on Wednesday, and we're just gonna lock in on the season from there. So always keep it locked to my Twitter account, Swag Talk 76. I always do a lot of pinned tweets to let you know what's coming up in the near future. HBCU top 10, my first one. I think I'm gonna drop it probably before week 1. I'm gonna wait to have the MEAC Swag Challenge and drop it. So that'll be coming around week 1. Also hit the Facebook Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk. Like the video, share it, and comment your thoughts on what you think UAPB, how that season is going to turn out. And then also don't forget to subscribe, man. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed during the course of these previews. I appreciate it a lot, and I definitely appreciate everybody else who already has been subscribed because, without you guys, I can't do this. And just also make sure that you're still subscribed because sometimes YouTube do funny things. So you might be subscribed and didn't, you might think you were subscribed and you're not. So just make sure that you are, and then hit that notification bell to be alerted to anytime I drop videos like this one dropping ahead of schedule. So make sure you hit that notification bell, especially during the season, and stay locked in with us. I think that's all the housekeeping. Oh, one final thing. I do have a playlist set up. You can click it at the end of this video, and it has all 12 previews on there. And I'm going to also keep that as a pinned tweet on my Twitter account. So, if you want to go back during the season and see what I got wrong, all right, you can hit those previews and check that out later down the line. So let's go ahead and talk Golden Lions, man. This team, last season under Coach Alonzo Hampton in his first year there had a rough go of it. Finished 2-9 on the season, 1-7 in conference. Not like I said, not a lot of success there. The only 2 wins were against Miles and the final game of the season against Texas Southern, which was their only SWAC win. Started off, with some promise. Did lose 42-7 to Tulsa, but looked really good in the first quarter and a half of football before turnovers and depth just wore them down. Against Tennessee State in the Southern Heritage Classic, they lost their game 24-10, but they were down 17-14 before they had a blocked field goal that basically cost them the game. They did beat Miles 21-20, and they were in the game against Alabama A&M late into the fourth quarter again before turnovers did them in. And from there on, the bottom kind of fell out of this team. They would lose to Southern 27-0. They would get blown out by Valley 42-17. Alcorn would beat them 31-7. Jackson would beat them 40-14. Prairie View would beat them 38-14. Groundland would beat them 43-14. And then they would some kind of way pull out a big victory at the end, late in the fourth quarter against TSU, and won the game 35-34. So as you can see, they lost 7 straight SWAC games before they won their final game, but 6 of those 7 SWAC games were blowout losses. So they just really, injuries and just lack of depth, and just the fact that this was a new team with a lot of new guys and not a big signing class that year. They just really did not have. They just did not have it as a team, and that's understandable for the situation that they were in. And they just, they tried to gut it out, but they just couldn't make it happen. So a lot of their numbers are not going to be good. They finished 11th in scoring offense at 16.7 points per game. They finished last in scoring defense at 33.8 points per game. Total offense, they were 10th at 288 yards per game, 22 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per play, which is the third fewest in terms of yards per play. They scored the second fewest touchdowns in the league. And then in total defense, they were last at 444 yards per game. They gave up 44 touchdowns, which were the second most in the league. 6.7 yards per play, which was the highest margin per play average for any team in conference. So as you can see, they defensively just could not get it done. Offense could not really do anything consistently. They were 8th in rushing offense at 134.9 yards per game. They had 11 touchdowns, averaged 3.7 yards per carry. Last in rushing defense at 194.7 yards per game, 21 touchdowns allowed, 5.1 yards per carry, which was the second highest per carry average in the conference. Passing offense, they were 11th at 153.5 yards per game, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completed 55% of their passes. Defensively, they were 11th in passing defense at 250 yards per game through the air, 23 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. Those 4 interceptions were the fewest in the conference. Their return game was actually pretty solid in kickoff returns. They were second in the league. They averaged 20.6 yards per kick return. Their punt return unit was 8th at 8.4 yards per return. They did have a punt return for a touchdown. When you look at the kickoff unit, they were last in the league at a 34.3 net average 57 yards per kickoff with 8 touchbacks. Field goals, they were last at 2 of 9 for 22%. Extra points, they were 6th at 21 of 22 for 95%. Punting, they average 39 yards per punt. They do have an all-conference punter returning, 35.5 yard net average. So they were pretty solid in the punt game. They did punt the ball 78 times, which was the most in the league. So they had a lot of punts. They had a lot of action for that punter. But Jeremy Baker was a solid punter last season. Average was an all-conference guy and preseason all-conference this year. They were 11th in sacks allowed with 39. They were 11th in sacks generated by their defense with 18. They, like I said, had 4 interceptions, which was last in the league. They forced 11 fumbles, which was 5th in the league. They recovered 9 of those, which was 4th in the league. So they did a pretty good job with fumbles, but interceptions, they were not good on defense. They had a -6 turnover margin. So, they turn the ball over quite often, and that would take you out of any positive drive that you have. Third down conversions, they were 11th at 25.8%. They were last in third down defense at 42.5%. Fourth down offense, they were 7th at 45.5%. And fourth down defense, they led the league at 7.7%. So they did a solid job on fourth downs. The opponents attempted the fewest fourth downs in the league at 13, and then they only converted 1. So they struggled so mightily on third down that really fourth down really wasn't that big of an issue. Even though they did play solid on fourth down defense. When you look at penalties, they were third. They were third in the league at 50.9 yards per game in penalties, 67 penalties, which is the second fewest in the league. So they weren't a highly penalized team at all. 82 penalties for the opponents, 70.2 yards per game, which tied for the league lead in terms of opponent yard per game in penalties. And their opponents were the third most penalized in the league. Again, that kind of shows that there's not a big correlation between those two things because their opponents racked up a lot of penalties, but they still racked up a lot of points. So they were able to overcome any issue they had. They were eighth in red zone scoring with a 61.3% conversion rate, 17 touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing, 2 of 7 on field goals, 3 fumbles, 1 interception, and 2 turnovers on downs. The one thing that's interesting to me was they only made 2 field goals all season, and both of them were inside the red zone, so they did not have any. They attempted 9 field goals. Only 2 of them were beyond the red zone, so they just did not have any. Well, they either did not have any confidence in their kicker, or they just weren't really in a lot of solid positions to attempt field goals outside the red zone, and that's an interesting fact because that's points that that you don't get to score. They were last in red zone defense, 87.5%, 27 touchdowns allowed, 15 rushing, 12 passing, 8 of 10 on field goals for the opponents, 1 fumble, and 2 turnovers on downs. So kind of moving over to some of the individual people, especially your returning guys. Their leading rusher is Jonas Davis. He comes back. He played in 9 games. Really had a lot of injuries and was up and down. But had a solid start this season. Had a big game against Tennessee State. I think had like over 125, 150 yards in that game. Finished with 350 yards on the season. 5-yard average, 1 touchdown. Had a longer 26. That's a guy, if he stays healthy, I think he could be a solid back for them. Mekhi Higgins and Jalen Macon were basically splitting time at quarterback. Higgins returns. He was 53 of 117, 45% completion rate, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 580 yards. As you could tell, he really had a tough time being consistent with the passing game. Made a lot of young guy mistakes. Just did not have a lot there for him. Was under heavy pressure a lot too. So just really not a lot of opportunities there. Damon Dawkins is the leading returning receiver. 24 catches, 199 yards on the season. Had a longer 43. They lose a lot in the receiving core. And that's something that they did look to replenish. They lose their top guy, Rico Dozier. That was their leading tackler with over 128 tackles. He heads to Bama State. One of the top guys coming back is Khalil Arnold. He's also a linebacker. Finished the last season with 40 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. All those 2 numbers are tops in returning guys. Like I said, they lost some key contributors on both sides of the ball. Kyle Knox has one of the few returning interceptions. He had 1. I think Boyd returns. He had 1 as well. When you look at the special teams unit, Jeremy Baker, 76 punts, 38.8 yard average, along with 68. They lose Dean Sarris, the kicker. Trey Gliff is a guy who's waited his turn at kicker, so I think he's gonna be the next in line. They have brought in some more legs to compete. And other than that, there's not really a lot there in the special teams in terms of returning production. So when you look at this team, there's questions all around. And that's no surprise with a team that won 2 games last year and still is in a big state of flux. They, like most teams in this situation, I think depth is a big issue. Number one, you have to build up your starting 22. but you still need guys behind those guys, and that's going to be where it gets interesting. They did focus. Um, Most of the guys that came out of the portal were skill guys. Kareem Burke from FAMU is one of the wide receiver transfers they had. They got Jackson Isaac from Eastern Illinois. He's a tight end. OJ Ross is a running back from Tennessee Tech. He's expected to contribute to the run game. Also, Donovan Giles from FAU at receiver. Zamarion Weber from Louisiana Monroe at running back. And Monty Roan from Ohio at wide receiver. Also, those are some of the skill guys they brought in. They brought in 8 transfers, I believe. So the bulk of those were receivers and running backs trying to find playmakers, and that's gonna be a key for this team. Is you have to have playmakers. You have to have guys that can break long plays. You need those explosive plays more than anything. Yes, you want to be able to drive the ball down the field. You want to be able to have a consistent offense, but you still need that explosion in your offense. And they had a couple big plays. Michael Jamerson had an 80-yard run last season, and Kenji Lewis had an 80-yard reception, and Kenji Lewis had a 64-yard reception. Other than that, they had one. Damon Douglas had a 43-yard catch. The longest run on the season was 79 yards by B.J. Curry. Also, Jamerson had a 70-yard carry. So, there were some explosive plays there. Kirsten Rogers had a 55-yard carry. But having more explosion in your offense opens up things a lot for you. And it also, you have to have consistency at the quarterback position. DJ Stevenson and Mekhi Higgins battling it out for that job. Who gets it is going to have better protection in front of them. The whole line has to be better. And until that happens, there's not a lot that this team is going to be able to do. Then, losing a guy like Rico Dozier who had as many tackles as he had on the defense like that, that's a huge hole to fill. The D line is going to, have to step up. The secondary is going to be full of a lot of new guys. And that's why I look at this as kind of like a build for the future type of season. You want to, like I said last season, you want to be competitive. You don't want to lay down and you're not anticipating, going into games just automatically thinking you're going to lose. But you need to start to build a foundation. And this is the season, I think, that you start to do that if you want to kind of get ahead, because last season was like a year 0. This season is like an actual year 1 if you're going to get his coach time to build his program. And that's where I think this team is. So Coach Hampton has tremendous energy. He's a guy who, he can, he can get you energized in the press conference. He has a good vision and idea. The team has to start to match that. I think this team didn't have the fight he had last season, so they have to have that. They have to be able to translate that stuff off the field into on the field production. And that's pretty much where I stand with this team. I think that it's not going to be an easy season for them. They have some tough games in the non-conference, and that's going to make it. That's going to make for a tough task for this team. When you look at the schedule for the Golden Lions, it starts pretty tough. They open up at Arkansas on Thursday night, August 29th. So early week game against a team that looking to kind of make a statement. That's a tough matchup in your first game. So I don't really, I think they dropped that game, and then they open up their home slate with Arkansas Baptist. That should be a win for them. And then they go to Memphis to take on Tennessee State in the Southern Heritage Classic. Now, like I said, they played Tennessee State tight last season. Can they do it again? That's going to be tough. I think that's another game that they do drop. And then they move on to September 21st at home against Central Arkansas, another tough opponent. They haven't really had much success against the team. I don't think that changes. And then they go to Alcorn the following week on October 5th. Strange things happen in this matchup. There's been some odd games in this matchup, but I don't really think much is gonna happen for them here, and that's another tough game for them. And then they get Prairie View at home on a Friday, October 11th. The possibility of an odd day game, like a Friday night game, is an 8:15 kickoff. That's pretty late in the evening. If this team is playing any kind of decent football, this could be an interesting game for Prairie View to kind of navigate. But I think the Panthers make it through that game with not a lot of issues. After that, they go to Grambling on the 19th of October. They they've had a rough time in a lot of these games, and I think that's another tough game for them. They get Valley at home on October 26th. They need to win this game. If there's a must win on your schedule, this is it. You don't have a lot of games that I feel like you're gonna be favored in. This could be it, but Valley won big in this game last season, so these two teams may not be as close as we think. But you're at home, so you kind of hoping for the best in that aspect, and that's like the one game in conference I feel like you're a favorite, or at least even pick 'em type of game. After that is at Jackson State on November 2nd. That's another L for you. Alabama A&M is an interesting game. They played them close last season in Huntsville. This is one of your final chances of the season to get a game under your belt. I don't, like I said, my thoughts on the Bulldogs is I don't really know where they're going to be at this point. But I do think they win that game against Pine Bluff. Following that is October 16th at Southern. That's going to be a game where, again, and they're not really going to be a close underdog. I think Southern wins that game. And TSU is a game I think they win. I think this is more of a pick 'em type of game. So it's similar to the Valley game. This is another game I think that you can call a must win. It's the final game of the season. It took a lot for you to beat this team last year. I don't know what TSU is going to be. So I like Pine Bluff in this game at home. And that pretty much wraps it up for them at my pick of 3-9, 2-6 in conference. That's a one game improvement on both aspects, and I think it's not good for a lot of teams, but that's okay for a team like this. I think that you're looking at a team that has a lot of questions to answer, and they don't have an easy slate. They don't have a tough they don't have a tough East Division draw. Playing Alabama A&M, who should probably finish fourth or maybe even third, but most likely fourth, and Valley, who picked to finish last in the East, but Valley beat them last year. And then JSU is a team who's contending, who could be considered East Division contender. So there's not a lot there for them. This is a tough task. You got to go to Alcorn, you got to go to Grambling, you got to go to Southern. So 3 out of your 5 division games are on the road. It just doesn't stack up well for them. And so I think that it's going to take a lot to get them in a position to where they can make some things happen. I don't really have a lot of optimism there, but I do have their ceiling at 4-8. I think if they beat Alabama A&M, that can put them at 4-8, or maybe Grambling or Southern, one of those kind of games. Maybe they catch one of those teams, in a tough spot, and they get a win there. 5 wins, is stretching it a little bit, but like I said, looking at those couple games, Southern and Grambling, you still one of those. You beat Alabama A&M, that gives you 5 wins, and that gives you. And that puts you at like 4-4 in conference. So it's possible, but I don't really forecast it. Worst case scenario, the floor is 1-11. That's basically beating Arkansas Baptist and losing all your SWAC games. Last season they came close to going 0-8 in conference. So it's not unheard of. But I don't think that they do that because I just think this team is going to be more competitive in their conference games. I don't think they're going to get blown out as much as they did last season. But I also don't have a lot of confidence in them winning a lot of games. I just think they're going to be more competitive and play better and build toward next season and the season after that. So, with the portal, things can change, but you do have to kind of be a destination for guys to want to come to your team. So this could be one of those foundational seasons that can help them continue to grow. Or it could, or it could implode badly, but I do think they're going to improve slightly from last season, and that's a good step forward for the Golden Lions. So that's going to do it for our 12-team preview series. Man, we finally made it through.